All right, man, Torture Talk, you know what it is. So look, man, today's episode, we're going to talk about The Weeknd being snubbed at the Grammys. It's the second time, and The Weeknd is one of the most successful artists. We want to know why the Grammys keep snubbing The Weeknd. I don't understand it, but we going to get to it, man. Let's go. Oh, man, I love that new intro. All right, man, look, man, if you want to donate, Cash App is right on the screen, all the good stuff, all the beautiful, single, sexy ladies. Shout out to y'all. And you already know what it is, man. Torture Talk. Look, man, what was I going to say? Oh, yes, the merch shop is coming. I'm still working on it. Trust me, I got it. It's coming. I got it. And, yeah, man, if you want to subscribe to Torture Talk After Hours, I'm the King of the North. Let me know what kingdom you from. Shout out to you, too, for pulling up for the first time. I love you. You know what I'm saying? That's how we greet each other. Come here. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. I'm looking up because my camera is up there, so I'm looking up. Maybe I should change my shade so it don't look like I'm looking up, because it looks like I'm looking up like I'm high or something. So, but let's get to it, man. Let's do it. All right, this comes courtesy of Fantastic Hip Hop. You already know what it is. Shout out to him, man. He's doing this thing over there. Let's get it.
Now, when it comes to The Weeknd, there has been no other superstar in modern music history who has been disrespected by the Grammys like him. When you find out why, you are going to be shocked. So before we go any further, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And while when the 2026 Grammy nominations first dropped, well, from Kendrick Lamar leading all artists with 9 total nominations to 3 rap albums getting to the Album of the Year category for the first time ever, it finally seemed like they got everything right this year. One major, and I mean major, issue that the Grammys have now made with this 2026 show is, well, not just The Weeknd getting snubbed from the awards as a whole, but by disrespecting him within the way they have, which when we break it down...
Yeah, I don't know what the obsession of The Weeknd, the Grammys have against The Weeknd. I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how the Grammys don't give this man his respect, his just due. I don't know. Maybe they look at him. Some people say he's the closest thing to Michael Jackson we have. I don't know. Maybe they don't want that type of pressure. I don't know. But it's clear as day that they are doing something, in my opinion, to snub him. So let's just take After Hours, for example. After Hours, during the pandemic, he released an album called After Hours. Nobody wasn't doing nothing. He was the only one outside doing stuff. And when I mean only one, he was the only one doing stuff. Like, he did the Super Bowl, he did the whole video, everything. He just did things that was just phenomenal. You know what I mean? And not to mention, Blinding Lights was one of the biggest songs of all time, and it never got a Grammy. I would never understand how Blinding Lights is literally the song of every New Year's now. Like Prince 1999, Blinding Lights is the new Prince 1999 John. And for some reason, it just I don't know. I have no clue. Maybe he's gonna explain.
Easily makes The Weeknd the most disrespected artist in the history of the show, because pretty much the way they have now set him up, well, it's almost like a humiliation ritual or something. Because if we go all the way back to 2021, from then, The Weeknd had some pretty big beef with the Grammys, all following the release of the biggest and one of the best albums within that time period and within his career in After Hours. And after doing every single thing that you could with a blockbuster, critically acclaimed album, and from the hits to the impact to the world building, the aesthetics, the track list top to bottom, everything as a whole on this record was borderline perfect. And in terms of just campaigning for a Grammy, it did every single thing that you would possibly ever need to get a nomination for Album of the Year, or honestly anything. Well, after releasing a record that had so many classic moments, had one of the best covers and visual presentations in just all of recent music history, and I mean, even with Blinding Lights, that is the biggest song of the streaming era, and it's not even close. Well, after all of that, as After Hours did not end up receiving a single nomination from the Grammys that year, that caused.
Yeah, like I said, I did not. I still to this day, it puzzles me how he never got a nomination, not one, for that album. I don't know how the Grammys actually account for that. I don't know if you sat in a boardroom and talked to somebody. I have no clue of how, you know what I'm saying, they came up with that. I just don't understand it. I don't. It blows my mind. It really does.
Major outrage, and it was not just fans or the industry who took notice of this, but The Weeknd himself came out and slammed the Grammys and swore to boycott them for the rest of his professional music career, which he really did declare in full for everybody to see with this post, where he just talked about the corruption to his millions of fans by saying, "The Grammys remain corrupt. You owe me, my fans, and the industry transparency." And with The Weeknd calling the Grammys out for being super corrupt and saying that they are not transparent in the nomination process, and called them out for having at the time what he said were secret committees. When we look at the history of the Grammys, this is one of the most pivotal moments in the history of the entire show and the history of the relationship.
Yeah, I was telling my boy about this too. Secret committees, I didn't know about that, but I did know that they do have this type of voting system. But I don't know about the secret committees. I didn't know about that. Maybe I need to look into that. That's pretty interesting.
That artists, especially within the modern era, have had with it. Because, The Weeknd really became the first artist to get disrespected all the way to the point where he didn't just do something small at a show, like put up a sign or just start a little chant with his fans, but he publicly came out and started a discourse about the way the voting process goes and how it's really created in a way where it's just so unfair and it's not really indicative of what the music awards that are treated like the championship of the entire craft really should be conducted by. And so after all of that, despite The Weeknd announcing that he was pulling back from the Grammys forever and would no longer even let them consider his music, although funny enough, he did end up winning awards in 2022 for the track Hurricane, which he was a featured artist on. Even with that, with the Grammys having a severed relationship and losing out on having one of the biggest stars sitting right in that center stage in the entire music industry at their shows, and then even doing performances, and then with other artists seeing his gripes with the award show as a whole, and that could create a trickle effect in the industry, where if more artists see this same disrespect, it could just create a bigger and bigger issue. Well, the Grammys did realize that this all couldn't look good for the stability of their show, and just pulling in more viewers and trying to create a better award show for music in general, because really with The Weeknd, who is one of the biggest superstars on the planet and has been the most streamed artist of this entire decade so far, for him to pull away, that really did speak volumes. And so ultimately,
I had said this before that I was talking about how The Weeknd broke all of these records. He did all of these things. And the crazy thing is, I'm starting to see a person with a lot of accomplishments. People don't really care too much. That they don't care. You know what I'm saying? They don't care. They don't really care. Like, people don't care. Like, only when it comes to their artist that they like, that's when they care.
Because of this, after the 2021 awards and all the way to now, they overhauled the entire voting process, got rid of these secret committees, and by the current 2026 awards, well, instead of having these secret boardrooms that are mysterious and nobody really knows anything about, the Grammys have close to 20,000 people voting on these things, which is why, if you have noticed, generally speaking, the awards have gotten way more in touch and do seem to be way more indicative of what is actually moving the culture of music in the best and most meaningful way. And so now, with the Grammys making this major change and making a big effort to highlight it at the last show they had in 2025, and by doing this, well, the CEO of the Grammys the CEO of the Recording Academy in Harvey Mason Jr. came out and delivered an entire address where he just explained who they added, why they added this bigger voting board, and how it encompasses just a bigger and greater group of voices. Well,
I remember him doing that. Now, I remember last year when everybody was saying that it was going to be a certain person come out. I said it's going to be The Weeknd, because it was like, oh, it's going to be Drake. He's going to perform. Like, nah, it's going to be The Weeknd. The reason why I knew it was going to be The Weeknd is because he had a big riff, even though Drake does too, but he had a big riff with them. And it would make sense because he released a new song, him and Playboi Carti, at the time. And I said, okay, yeah, he's definitely going to do that. You know what I'm saying? And he was in the area. So I kind of knew that was going to happen.
Mason did explain how this was all because, and they really did think this through, when The Weeknd called them out for being pretty much virtually corrupt, or at the very least out of touch. And so ultimately with this, they ended up bringing out a surprise performer, which I don't think anybody expected, but it ultimately ended up being a moment where the Grammys and The Weeknd squashed their beef. And then The Weeknd did one of the best performances of the night, where he played Timeless with Playboi Carti. And then he also played Cry For You right fresh off the release of his 2025 album, Hurry Up Tomorrow. And you would think after this moment where we got to see the Grammys and The Weeknd just make peace, all of this would be over. But nope. Fast forward to the 2026 Grammys and everything that is nominated and everything that they managed to get right, which I did applaud them for recently. Well, within this, despite Kendrick Lamar, Bad Bunny, Tyler the Creator, Clips, and so many other deserving artists getting the recognition that
I definitely would have took Justin Bieber out of there and put The Weeknd. Leon Thomas deserves to be there because he's pretty big at the time. Right now, he's pretty doing his thing. Sabrina Carpenter, she definitely doing her thing, but there's no way you can justify even Lady Gaga. There's no way you can justify Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber to be over The Weeknd. I'm sorry, there's no way. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Lady Gaga, you could keep her in there, but Justin Bieber definitely shouldn't have been there. He definitely shouldn't have been in this whole thing because that album didn't do as well, wasn't that good. But the thing is too, now maybe, I don't know, maybe her album came out too late. I don't see Taylor on here either, so let's keep it going.
They have earned. The Weeknd has gotten 0 nominations for his album Hurry Up Tomorrow, and for the song that he was really pushing in most of the voting categories in Timeless. And I mean, after seeing the trajectory of events, which happens to be that The Weeknd got snubbed from everything with a great and honestly classic album, then he boycotted the Grammys and changed the entire voting system. Then they announced those changes to the voting system at their biggest show in years. And then after highlighting the changes to their voting system, they showed that they squashed the beef with the guy who started this whole thing in the first place by bringing The Weeknd out to perform. And then after that,
I did not know that The Weeknd had them change the whole voting process. That's crazy as hell. I didn't know that. This is something new to me. That's crazy.
After there being rumors that The Weeknd was going to perform and he was really going to be competing with Kendrick Lamar and Bad Bunny for the album of the year, they seem to be the front runners for this whole thing. Well, now The Weeknd has gotten 0 nominations for his album Hurry Up Tomorrow and for any of the other work he has done. I mean, this is really the worst full circle moment of all time, because after every single thing that we have seen go down between The Weeknd and the Grammys in the last 5 years or so, we are now back at the point where The Weeknd was in 2021 after After Hours did not receive a single nomination. And just with this, despite The Weeknd having an amazing album, he put out some of the best music videos I've seen this year too, with both Cry For Me and Baptized in Fear. The Timeless record was a really solid hit song, and overall, when we look at the Hurry Up Tomorrow record, for me, outside of a few hip-hop albums, it is by far the best album I have heard this year. And honestly, when you look at it as a complete body of work from start to finish and as a full listening experience, I mean, from the moments to the song transitions to everything else embedded within this project, you can make a very strong argument that, well, the supposed last album of The Weeknd is his best. And even when it comes to supporting the album and making sure that people remember that this thing did drop when the voting actually did arrive, because sometimes with these earlier releases compared to when the voting actually is, things can be forgotten. I mean, not just did The Weeknd have one of the most incredible tours that I have ever seen, where he is, again, one of the few artists who can actually play within stadiums. And I saw one of his shows live, and I just have to say it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I mean, the intro alone, which The Weeknd came out with this mask, he was aura farming, and he was singing the track The Abyss from Hurry Up Tomorrow. And just seeing him come out the way he did to perform and just enter the building, honestly, out of all of the shows I've ever been.
Yeah, The Weeknd, Taylor Swift, Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, and Eminem are really the only artists on this planet, Beyonce too, that can fill up stadiums. Like, they really can do stadiums. Like, The Weeknd was doing stadiums for years, maybe 2-3 years. He was doing stadiums. I've been to two of his concerts. I've been to two of his concerts. I've been to one in North Jersey, and one in Philadelphia. I've been to two, and if you've never been to a Weeknd concert, you need to go. I'm gonna tell you right now, you gotta go. It's incredible. I mean, the stuff that he does, just the aesthetic of it, just the feel, it's incredible. I'm telling you.
Do I really have to say, he did have the best intro to his show that I have ever seen in my life. Well, I mean, from an amazing tour which did amazing numbers to literally being the most streamed artist on Spotify for most of the year, The Weeknd has done the work to stay relevant and show that he is a superstar. So for still the Grammys to pretty much tell him to take all of that, to take an almost 10 out of 10 album and everything you did to support it and get out of here, well, it's just weird. But now the reason why The Weeknd isn't represented at this show, despite having the run and the greatness of music that he has put out, well, compared to last time with the secret committees and all of the weird stuff around the Grammys, it is a lot more complicated, although it has to do with a lot of weird stuff around the Grammys than you would think. And what I mean by that is now somehow with the system that has been created in the Grammys' effort to fix everything, while generally speaking it has made things better for most artists, there is a small tier of people, which The Weeknd is probably the most prominent within, that it's actually set back more than ever, which now all does come down to the fact that with the current setup of the Grammy voting, well, after The Weeknd's outrage ended the secret committees and created a bigger voting board of people who actually work within the music industry as writers, artists, engineers, producers, and everything in between, well, the way everybody gets to vote is now based on the genres and areas of music that you have expertise in. So, for example, let's just take a hip-hop producer. If Metro Boomin is a voting member for the Grammys, he won't be able to vote for pop music or Latin, but he will be able to vote for hip-hop because that is considered the area that he is an expert in. So aside...
That's crazy that now that makes sense. It makes sense. But I'm gonna tell you right now, which is kind of weird to me. There's songs on there that's nominated. Like, I'm just saying, like, me personally, you took songs over Timeless, right? Let's just say Timeless. That song could have been nominated. It could have been nominated because it was everywhere. It still is everywhere. It could have been nominated. I think that a lot of people you put other songs on there that I just don't think should have been on there. You know what I'm saying? But Timeless definitely could have took the spot of one of those songs. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion.
And being able to nominate within the general categories, that's the sphere that you are put to vote in. And then if somebody like Max Martin, who works with Taylor Swift and a lot of the big pop stars, was voting, he would only be able to vote within pop music exclusively because that's where his area of expertise is considered. And so with this and with The Weeknd, the problem is with this very setup within the voting and where The Weeknd operates and where he even went about his nominations, which all just does come to the fact that, well, throughout different eras of The Weeknd's career, in terms of what the industry has received his music by, and what they have then therefore pushed his music to in terms of radio and playlisting and all of that stuff that makes a superstar, he has fully switched and transcended genres in terms of the way that the industry and radio has classified his stuff overall, which pretty much in terms of his career trajectory had him go from R&B to then pop music. And then he's always made songs with rappers, and a lot of his fans are rap fans who don't really like a lot of other artists who aren't rappers. So then he gets thrown into a lot of hip-hop stuff and is even perceived as a hip-hop artist to some people who are really not in the know, although of course he's not a rapper. And now after being kind of full pop since 2015, he really peaked at that with Starboy, and then After Hours obviously had major pop records with Blinding Lights and Save Your Tears. But then fast forward to now, and Timeless is kind of an R&B but also a hip-hop crossover, and his new album is now way more R&B centered and closer to what his earlier work sounds like than what After Hours was, which leaned way more pop. Well, overall, you see the salad and trip up that I'm even saying here just by talking about The Weeknd and who.
Yeah, and just to add to that, also too, the at Dawn FM, throw that in there as well, because that came after Hours, and that was more 80s type synth pop too. So then when you get to what's that, Hurry Up Tomorrow, that was more of heavy R&B. Is like it wasn't like the other two albums. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion,
he is as an artist, which unlike most people ever in music, you can't really put him or place him within a genre the same way you can with most people. And as a result of this, his whole name and presence has kind of slipped through the cracks when it comes to the Grammy voting. Because to really reinforce this, while the hip-hop voters all vote hip-hop and back their guys, which may be a Kendrick Lamar or a Clips or a JID or a Tyler the Creator, and then all the Latin voters back somebody like a Bad Bunny, or the pop voters, they back Sabrina Carpenter, with The Weeknd doing and accomplishing so much in so many different styles of music. And yet again, the Metro Boomins, or then the people he is tapped in with R&B with, well, they all can't vote for him or galvanize around him the same way that they could a Kendrick Lamar or a Leon Thomas. Well, The Weeknd ultimately does not have this set group of peers and therefore voters that are clearly representing and working off the very foundation of his music in a direct way here. And I just think with this, what we are ultimately seeing is that despite The Weeknd and his boycott of the Grammys in 2021 fixing the voting system and getting some major issues all fixed out, it does seem like what we are seeing from the Grammys doing this to him in 2025 is that, well, that system is still so far from being fixed in full, and there are some major tweaks that need to be made, which now, if you ask me what that is, well, a lot of it does come down to the fact that the genre classification of the Grammys and even the inter-genre awards, these things are an absolute mess, and they have really devolved and diverted into reactionary, award-driven slop in a lot of ways, where things don't even make any sense anymore. Because with R&B, for example, because Robert Glasper won over Chris Brown one year, they now made more categories to try and avoid more crash outs, or even in country, because everybody in country was mad that Beyonce showed out and won big in their field with Cowboy Carter. This year, they came up with a traditional country category to try and push out people like Beyonce from.
I kind of figured they was going to do that, and I think that they did that with hip hop because people was complaining, and then eventually they kind of scaled it back. Before, we used to be like only like 5 or 6 categories, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? They really didn't have like all these, that the ones we seen: album of the year, record of the year, hip hop album of the year, country album of the year, and video of the year. That's basically what it was. Now you got all of these different different terms and terminologies, or artist of the year who recorded with his hands. Like it's just stuff that, you know, they making these different, and not to say that they shouldn't do that, but still, like, I just think sometimes they do it to just to satisfy people.
Winning the awards that they all got upset about. And just with this, we see a major issue with the Grammys, which is that with all of the egos they manage and all of the fallouts and crash outs that happen after an award is given to somebody who does not deserve it, or who there is outrage from in the case of somebody like a Beyonce, because they can't contextualize or they don't want to face how Beyonce did the thing they do and just did it a lot better. And so with this, we see a major issue with the Grammys, which is that a lot of the times the award show devolves and devolves further to the point where some stuff just doesn't make any sense. And when it comes to the biggest issues and the biggest parts about it right now that just don't make any sense at all, well, nothing, and I mean nothing, is possibly worse than not just The Weeknd not getting anything the way he did, but after what he went through in 2021 and then the apology they gave him in 2025, well, to just see him get snubbed and humiliated like this, which what is clear from seeing this go down is that you could pretty much now say that when it comes to The Weeknd, he really may be the most disrespected artist in not just the current or recent history of the Grammy Awards, but in the entire history of the Grammy Awards. And so now with all that said,
I could kind of agree with that. Yeah, man. So with all that said, let me know. Nah, I'm joking. Yeah, man. I could kind of agree with that. I think that it's just more excuses that have, but it just goes to show you when you're that talented and you in all these different genres, sometimes it's hard to place you. But I think that I think it's a travesty. I just think it's a travesty to see Blinding Lights never win an award. That I think that if they would have put Blinding Lights in the category of those categories of the Grammys, it would have won every award that it was in at that time. People were shocked that Blinding Lights never won an award. I tell people this and they be like, "You what?" I'd be like, "Well, at least for the Grammys. I think it won other awards, but not for the Grammys." But thank y'all for joining me. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all on the next one, man. I'm out of here. Torture Talk. Peace. Bye.